Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, morning everyone. Welcome to the next Changemaker conversation in the series. So today we're really lucky to be joined. Actually, it's the first conversation where we've had two speakers join us or two guests join us. So we've got Manon and Leah from RASAC, who are here to talk about sexual violence. Let me put them on the screen so they can give a proper wave.
Morning. Hello. Good morning, everyone.
So I'm personally really excited for this conversation. I joined a training, I think, was it 2-3 months ago, Manon, with yourself on sexual violence? One of the reasons I'm excited about this is, despite the training with Manon being very, very good, is probably an area that I'm least familiar with in my work at Conway Mind. So I'm kind of excited to be sat here for the next hour just learning for myself. But I think for the community and for our community change makers, is probably one of the most stigmatized areas, probably one of the least spoken about areas, it's maybe fair to say. Or an area where people feel least comfortable kind of leaning into conversations and support. So yeah, hopefully from today's chat, not to set the bar too high for you both, but hopefully over the next hour, we're going to make that all a lot easier for people. So before jumping into it, it'd be great to hear like a little bit more from yourself, Leah and Manon. Like, I'm really interested how you started working in this area and your backgrounds.
Great. Sure, I'll jump in. Great. Thank you so much, Paul, for having us. We're so excited to be a part of this. As Paul said, my name's Leah, but as you can tell, I am not from North Wales originally. I'm from Belfast, but I'm very happy now to be living in North Wales. My background is I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapeutic counsellor, which I love. I specialise in intergenerational trauma and anxiety, working with ages kind of 3 to 18. I've always worked with kids and young people, and I think in the counselling sphere, I was kind of always doing that kind of post-trauma work, which, is brilliant and really important. However, I wasn't doing anything that was kind of preemptive. So I came on board with RASAC just in January of this year, which I was so excited to be a part of, because we try and do a lot of proactive work, a lot of awareness work. We go into schools, we run workshops. We've been starting some women's groups locally. We have a dog joining. Very exciting.
My dog in the background.
All dogs must join the call. So absolutely honoured to be part of Team RASAC now since January, and as the part of the training, the children and young people training team. So it's been brilliant so far.
Nice, thanks, Leah. And Manon, also, perhaps if you can give us a bit of background on RASAC as well for people who aren't familiar.
Absolutely. My name's Manon. I joined RASAC just over a year ago now. I was facing redundancy in my previous role, and when this one came up, it just seemed like a perfect fit. I've got a background in training and in engagement, and that's what this role involves. And just the idea of sort of getting in there initially and doing that preventive work with the young people in schools, changing those mindsets, changing those behaviour patterns, and hopefully to work towards eradicating sexual violence. So again, like Leah, really pleased to be part of the team and doing this kind of important work. So RASAC ourselves, we're a charity. We're based in North Wales. We cover all 6 counties of North Wales. We offer support to anybody that's been affected by rape or sexual violence from the ages of 3 and upwards. So that could be the victim survivor themselves, maybe a parent or a partner of the victim survivor as well. We offer counselling, and it's completely free of charge because we are a charity. We can do that in our offices in Bangor and Trill, but we can also come to you as well. So if there's a community venue in your local area, or we've got actually a camper van that's got sort of removable signage, it's all been converted into a lovely counselling room, and we can come to you if you can't come to us. So there's no limit to our support. And we also offer an ISVA support service as well, so the Independent Sexual Violence Advisor. So that's somebody that can kind of hold your hand and guide you through the process. We've got the counselling for the emotional support, and then the ISVA can offer that more practical support. So help you out if you are going through the criminal justice system. We can attend appointments with you and things like that. The whole sort of therapeutic package, if you like.
Amazing. It's probably the not the most important thing to pick out of what you just said, but you've got a camper van.
We do.
Cool.
We are very proud of our camper van. It's all been converted, really comfortable, sort of counselling room in the back, no signage or anything, so it's completely discreet. But it allows us to go to, not only can we use it for counselling, but it allows us to go to events as well. So we'd like something, we can set up shop at the Eisteddfod and just reach more people as well, and get that message out there that we're here to help.
Yeah,
amazing. All right, cool. Well, I know there's a couple of slides set up just to help guide the conversation. So I'll mainly, let me get these up on screen for you, actually. Yeah, I can hand across to you guys and sort of dip in with a few questions of my own and keep it conversational as we go.
I'm going to apologise for that middle top one, first of all. That's gone a little bit wonky. It was fine on my screen. Very sorry. I need tech support for that one.
Manon is my tech support. You're being far too hard on yourself, Manon.
It's gone a bit wrong. I think we just wanted, sort of all jokes aside, we wanted to highlight how prevalent sexual violence is. There's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of misconception around sexual violence. When we actually go into schools, we do ask the pupils, it's one of our quiz questions, how many people have been affected by rape or sexual violence? And the majority of the time, the answers are wildly off. They think it's far less common than it is. So if it's happening this much, that's too much, and we need to be changing it and doing something about it. But also to know that you're not alone. 1 in 4 women have been raped or sexually assaulted since the age of 16, and 1 in 18 men. We need to create that safe space where everybody feels comfortable and confident in coming forward and saying, hey, do you know what? Something's happened to me and it wasn't okay. And I'm not ashamed to say that it's happened, but I need somebody to talk to, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, the statistics are harrowing. They are horrendous. And as you said at the start, Paul, this is something we don't talk about. Why on earth is this something we don't talk about when the statistics are as they are? It is a disgrace that we've got to this point in society that this is something we do not talk about. Like Manon said, we are going into schools. We run this brilliant package called Don't Steal My Future. And it was actually created after the murder of Sarah Everard. And in that impact statement, people aren't aware, Sarah Everard was raped and murdered by a serving Met police officer at the time, which is absolutely no reflection on the police here. All the police have actually encouraged us to run this programme. In the impact statement from Sarah's family, it said that he took her life and stole her future, which is why kind of this package has been built. But in that, like Manon said, we say, you know, what do you think the statistics are? How many? One in how many? And it's always way off. Why on earth is this something we are still uncomfortable talking about? Why is it still something that it's not allowed to be spoken about? We silence people. And as on screen, you can see 1 in 4 women, 1 in 18 men is not a small statistic either. So this is a conversation not just for women, it's a conversation for men as well, and for wider society. It's one for survivors, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, but also for the rest of us. It's a conversation of, oh, this is actually happening. Okay, what do we do now that we know the statistics are there?
Yeah. I was going to ask on these statistics as well, and I'm a bit conscious about asking in case it's stealing some content from later. But are these reported figures? Because kind of within this whole conversation about it being a bit taboo and not being spoken about enough is I imagine if these are reported figures, then the actual figures are going to be quite a bit higher.
Vastly different. So this is data and statistics from Rape Crisis England and Wales, but they do come with a caveat and a pinch of salt. That middle bottom one, 5 in 6 women who are raped don't report. So we know there is a massive underreporting. There's, like we say, a lot of stigma, lots of people don't come forward, and there's various reasons people don't want to come forward, and that's okay. We're all the experts in our own journey, and we know, how we want to handle things and how we want to process things. So we can't be forcing anybody to report if they don't want to. But the more we talk about it and get rid of that stigma, we can encourage people to come forward and eradicate this sort of behaviour. One of my lines when I go into school, I'll sort of ask the pupils, do you think if I'd popped out of the room, maybe nipped to the loo, and I come back and I find somebody had stolen my purse, would I blame myself? Would I be embarrassed? Would I keep quiet about it? I wouldn't. I'd know it was that perpetrator's fault, and I'd shout it from the rooftops. But for some reason, when it comes to sexual violence, we do internalise that. There's a lot of victims, which absolutely shouldn't be. 100% of the blame is with the perpetrator in all instances. So we do need to be kind of having these kind of conversations. So thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. And I remember, Manon, when I heard you say that for the first time, and I was like, that's so true. You said, oh, if someone came in and stole my purse, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. But when it comes to this kind of thing, we don't talk about it. And I was like, it was one of those statements I had to reflect on. Be like, why has that happened? How have we gotten to that point where, and I personally know that that is true, that, you would be absolutely, there would be no embarrassment, there would be no shame around having a purse stolen. However, we have all these barriers in front of us when it comes to sexual violence, which is why, like I said, these conversations are so important. We have to start having them. We've got to start having them in this kind of context, but in as many contexts as we can as well. And with, a lot of our work is with children and young people, but we're starting to think as well of what is maybe like with older generations as well, where there's potentially even more stigma. There's cultural stigma, there's social stigma. All throughout lifespan, we need to be thinking, how many spheres can we get this conversation into for the sake of survivors and, for the sake of everybody, really. Does that make sense?
I think we've mentioned barriers quite a lot, and I think the more we know what these barriers are, the more we can help somebody overcome them. So if we know what's stopping people coming forward or stopping people wanting to talk to other people, I don't necessarily mean report when I say come forward, but just to talk to somebody about it. If we know what they are, we can kind of work around those, overcome those stereotypes and support people to come forward and get support that they need.
I know you're going to move on to barriers shortly, Manon. I was curious about, particularly with schools, when you approach them with something like this, what's I don't know, how open are they to it? And have you perhaps seen a shift over the years from...
Yeah, it does vary. Obviously, I can imagine it's quite scary. As a school, you've got somebody emailing you going, hi, can I come in and talk to your pupils about sexual violence? Yeah. And they might go, ooh, that's a bit, are our pupils ready for that? Or is this appropriate? And I think all our packages, they are age appropriate. They've been designed specifically for certain school years. And I think it is part of the curriculum now, but it's an important conversation to have. There is definitely a shift. We've got a lot of teachers reporting to us that pupils are misogynistic, and not necessarily just towards each other, but towards the teaching staff as well. So misogyny is definitely something that's increasing, and we know for a fact that misogyny is linked to sexual violence. So if we can get early with these pupils, change those mindsets, tell them that sexism and misogyny is not okay, and it is the basis for sexual violence, then again, hopefully we're going a long way towards eradicating that behaviour.
Yeah. That's really
it's interesting. Sorry, Leah. I was just going to say it's interesting, isn't it? When you think about misogyny and how it impacts young people.
Yeah.
And if there's a conversation in school, or you hear there's a workshop happening in a school around safe use of social media as a kind of branch of the misogyny and the manosphere and everything that's going on, that feels quite comfortable. But then if you say, and there's another branch, we're also going to have a sexual violence workshop, and I'll admit this is my like instinctive feeling, which I probably need to interrogate why I feel like that a little bit. But if there's a suggestion that, and then we're doing a workshop on sexual violence because of misogyny and that kind of messaging, suddenly I'm like, oh, I feel less comfortable with that workshop than a workshop on the harms of social media. Yeah. And it's strange, that instinct.
Yeah.
I was delivering sexual violence awareness and managing disclosures recently, and speaking to the facilitator or the organizer before the session and discussing the topic, and she lowered her voice every time she said the word rape, even though that's what I was there to discuss, and I was obviously going to be saying it a few times during the session. Every time she spoke, in every sentence, she'd sort of whisper that word rape, even it was just talking to the two of us. So you're not alone, Paul. It is a common, we can't talk about that. And we can and we need to.
Yeah, I so agree. You know, I'd say you're in the majority there, Paul, and that is, if people were honest, I think that's how a lot of us come to these conversations. Even when I first started with Razak, I was still like hesitant to speak of, what should I say? What should I not say? And I think the important thing is that we're saying anything at all, that we're welcoming conversations, and that kind of when you're asking about what's it like, you know, for going into schools with young people. And I think the most valuable thing I see is what it's like when you give young people a voice, or give them space to have a voice, and say, look, we're not going to get this 100% right, but here's a space where we can talk about it, and let's just facilitate this conversation. This is what we know, and we want to hear what you think as well. And yes, with the manosphere and social media culture, things are changing, and things will potentially change in the next year. If a social media ban does come in as well, that it'll look different again. Okay, culture will shift, things will move, and we need to be ready to not move with it, but see where it's going, and be aware of where it's going. We do have a lot of teachers, of youth workers at the minute asking us, what do we do about this? What do we do about this misogyny and about, you know, incel ideology, and yeah, just kind of toxic masculinity that's coming through. And I think what we keep going back to is having open conversations and having safe spaces for young people. Those are kind of our top two at the minute of, this is going to keep happening if we don't talk about it. So it's got to be on the table in some form or another.
Yeah, nice. And we've kind of started getting into a lot of the barriers already in this conversation, haven't we? But Manon, I know you were going to mention.
All right, throw up the slide. There we go. So there's barriers not only for the individual that it's happened to, but there's barriers for us in hearing that as well, or having that conversation. So like we've mentioned already, there's a lot of fear, shame and embarrassment for the victim survivor. Lots and lots of reasons that stigma is perpetuated across society. One of the biggest fears for somebody is that they won't be believed as well. At Razak, we believe everyone. If it takes a lot of courage to come forward and say that something like this has happened to you, we know that people don't lie about this kind of stuff. So we believe everyone. And for somebody to come up to you and sort of disclose that something has happened, you almost want to treat that as an honour. If they trust you and they feel comfortable enough with you to come forward and say that something has happened to them, the least we can do is believe them, and take that with the sort of respect that it deserves. There's age, gender, sexuality can come into barriers to disclosing. This might be maybe they don't feel, if you've got a younger female, they're not going to feel comfortable disclosing to an older male, maybe, or if somebody has a different sexuality. So to encourage those disclosures, we do need to make sure that we've got multiple reporting channels, multiple different people that somebody can come forward to, that we're not restricting, if we've got policies in our workplace or anything like that, that it's not restricted to, you must report to this one person or you must speak to this one police officer. It needs to be as fluid and as flexible as possible to make that individual as comfortable as possible. Obviously, there's various cultural barriers as well. This could be something that's normalised within certain cultures, or we don't want to talk to somebody of a different culture from ourselves. Us knowing, if somebody were to disclose to us as well, there's an added barrier. We might know the suspected perpetrator or the person that's been accused of doing it for them. That could colour our judgment, or that could really impact the victim survivors wanting to tell us, because they think, oh, well, if you're friends with them, I can't tell you that your friend has done something like this to me. And trust, a massive, massive one. Just for somebody to disclose to you takes a lot of trust. If I don't trust you, or I'm not comfortable with you, or I don't know what you're going to do with that information afterwards, I'm not close to you. So we need to make sure that the person is comfortable, and that trust and open relationship is there. Leah, do you want to take areas for the...
Absolutely. So then on the right-hand side there, we're thinking about what are the barriers then as someone's supporting. So if you're in a supporting role, perhaps a professional role, like if you're a teacher or youth worker, that first one, lack of experience or knowledge. It's so difficult, like we've said, to know what's the right thing to say, to know even what's happening, and to spot the signs. This has become, very, very sadly, quite a common thing through our society. So it's really difficult for professionals to know, okay, A, what does this look like? And B, what do I do if I spot it? We're scared of saying the wrong thing when it comes to sexual violence. We're scared of making something worse. We're scared of getting it wrong. We're scared of triggering somebody, which I completely understand. And this is not in any way to point fingers at professionals or those supporting to say, oh, look, you didn't spot the signs, you didn't get it right, you said the wrong thing. The only thing you can do is try your best. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get it right. But the best thing that we can do is try. And leaving the stigma at the door is difficult. We can recognize that this is difficult, absolutely, but we have to. There's support out there for professionals to be able to make potentially some more informed decisions. For example, if you look down that list there, lack of a safe space. So if we're preemptive and we think, okay, I'm a teacher and I have a really, really busy classroom, and if a young person came to me to disclose something, or if I notice something about a young person that's changed, what do? I have a really busy class, then we're out for break, and then I've got to do this, I've got to do that. If we preemptively think, oh, but this room I know is free at this time, and it has a small window, so, in terms of safeguarding ratios, it's all okay, and but it's going to be private, and we're not going to be interrupted. So I know that there's a safe space for disclosure. Making those small preemptive decisions can make a really, really huge difference. So it can be, for a professional, if you're, for example, working from home, if this is something about the workplace, if you have a disclosure on a Friday afternoon, which we do see quite a bit, the kind of, whether that is the anxiety of going back home on a Friday, whether that has just been the week has been on top of you, or if someone just wants to say something on Friday and then leave and they know they don't have to come back for another 2 days. What do you do on a Friday afternoon? It is so hard for professionals. So just to make it clear, it's okay for it to be difficult, and it's okay for it to be a bit clunky when it comes to sexual violence, that you're not sure as to what to do or what is the best thing to do. We can always support at RASAC. We've got a great helpline that you're welcome to call if you're really struggling with this kind of, what do I do? Who do I speak to? And there are always robust safeguarding policies. Wherever you should be working, there should be robust safeguarding policies that tell you who you're going to and what that signposting looks like. Because it is really, really difficult. As we've just said, for someone coming forward, we don't believe that people lie about this. These barriers are really massive, and they're systemic as well. These barriers have been in place for a really long time. So for an individual to be able to get past all of those barriers to make a disclosure takes so much courage and it takes so much effort, no matter if they're a young person or not. If they're 8 or if they're 80, those barriers are still there. So we need to recognize that and know that, okay, this isn't about us doing the perfect thing. It's about us being present with the person at that place and time.
Yeah. Can I pick up on that? I think we ask ourselves what if quite a lot, don't we? What if I make it worse? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I cause them more problems? What if you don't ask the question? What then? What is that potential situation? It's better to ask the question and be wrong than to not ask it and let that potential harm continue. We know that survivors want to be asked. We've looked at all those barriers. It's a really difficult conversation to begin. If you go into a room and you sort of, right, I need to talk to somebody, something's happened to me. That's a really, really difficult thing to begin. But if somebody were to ask me, is everything okay? I've noticed this about you, or you've been different recently. Is everything all right? That's giving me that permission and that safe space to come forward and say, no, everything isn't okay. Something has happened. And it's opening that door. It's giving that permission, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's really interesting here is, if I just put your slide back up, and for anybody who might have watched any of the other Changemaker conversations, this column on the right, the barriers to disclosing for you, this could just as easily be a slide about somebody's mental health.
Yeah.
So somebody mental health conversation, it could be a slide about basically all of the topics we've already covered: addiction, grief. So it's kind of the same stories and the same worries that we tell ourselves when looking to support somebody. And I know in Changemakers, in the workshops that we do, even though it's an hour-long workshop, it can essentially be condensed into a 5-second workshop where it's just one slide that says listen and don't fix. And it seems as if that mantra would potentially work here as well. And even though that is quite a simple thing to say, listen and don't fix, it can be tricky to be able to do that, because you feel this weight of responsibility to help a person and find solutions. But yeah, from the sounds of what you guys are saying, certainly if somebody's disclosing for the first time, you know, almost thinking of it as a mental health conversation and thinking, I'm just here to listen, not offer solutions, and just give that space and permission, like you said, to Manon, to this person, just to get everything out there that they want to.
Yeah, I mean, that can be quite healing in itself, just saying it out loud, because quite often, like you say, it could be that first disclosure. They've never said it out loud. They've maybe never even processed it or realized that is actually what happened. So just to tell somebody, that can be really empowering, and that can be really healing in itself. So we don't need that other person to heal us or offer those solutions or fill in gaps in the conversation. If there is a disclosure and somebody's being quiet, they're processing, they're thinking, we don't need to feel like we've got to fill in those gaps. Just let that person talk at their own pace, at their own speed.
Yeah. And isn't that so telling that it's, you know, it's surprising that it looks similar to other topics? I think that really speaks into how taboo this topic is, that, oh, maybe we are equipped for this. Maybe we could have this kind of conversation, but we don't say it. We don't say, oh, you know, if this, we could apply these same principles that we use when talking about mental health that we do to if someone comes forward and says they've been raped. That you know, we don't expect it because we don't talk about it.
100%, yeah. And I think that's a really good way of putting it, because I think people would instinctively agree that if it's a conversation about mental health or gambling or these topics that still have stigma but less taboo than sexual violence, if you were to say to them, it's essentially the same principles across all of those, you'd be like, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But then if you were to say next on the list is sexual violence, I think the instinct is, there's probably some crossover, but there's an entirely new chapter and some more like sophisticated stuff that I need to be doing. And obviously, at your level as professionals, yes, there will be. But for people in the community,
Yeah.
It's quite reassuring to hear that those same principles do cross over.
Great. That's great. And if no, go ahead, Manon. You go for it.
That internet meme thing at the minute, isn't it? We listen and we don't judge, and that's
yeah. What if we were all capable of listening for this when it comes to this topic? When it comes to someone who has faced rape, if someone has faced sexual harassment, if they've faced any kind of sexual violence, if we could just listen. We just listen to someone. And here's the thing, you don't need to fix it. If we know where to signpost someone, that is enough. Because you can't take everything on your shoulders, especially, professionals. You can't take everything on your shoulders. Even as a friend, you can't take all of your friends' issues onto yourself. But you can listen and you can say, okay, I can't help with that for you. I can't change that for you. I wish I could. I can't change that for you. But I know of this service that can help you get some more support. Do you want to contact them together? Or do you want to do that? Do you want me to do it for you? Do you want to do it yourself? That, knowing that, there's options there, but we can just listen.
Because I was going to ask as well, and I suppose how could we frame it? Like the downside of not doing this. So Manon, when you were talking through particularly the first 3 bullet points for the victim and the survivor, fear, embarrassment, shame, obviously working in mental health myself, I'm like, well, those are some big, heavy emotions that are going to have a big mental health impact on individuals. So yeah, I wondered if you could speak a little bit about the mental health impact that you do see on individuals.
Leah, do you want to take that one as a counsellor?
Sure, I'll go for it. So if we think about kind of the impact of trauma, especially on the brain, if we really strip it back, and polyvagal theory is kind of a big term that's being bashed around a lot, but I actually find it really helpful when we're considering just what's happening to the brain when it comes in face with trauma. At its core, trauma is thinking you're going to die. And that's what's happening in sexual violence, that the body thinks it's going to die because you're under such a severe threat. It's such an intimate threat that your body thinks it's going to die. So that is what it means when you're traumatized. That's something you can't process. And if we look at it kind of in 3 stages in our mind, so we've got ventral vagal, where we kind of operate in that safe, healthy capacity, that neurons are working as we want them to, that we feel calm, we feel regulated, that we kind of see things as they are. That's ventral vagal. However, when we're in the face of trauma, it activates that nervous system. So we think about part of the brain, the amygdala, that senses danger and is then releasing cortisol and adrenaline in its droves. And that's a real basic survival principle, right? So if you think about the adrenaline going through your body, some people might get sweaty palms, and that means that we would grip things better if we were running away from a bear back in the day. You might get jittery legs. When I'm on an airplane, I bounce my legs up and down because I'm nervous. And that's because the adrenaline goes to your legs to run away. And you might need a nervous wee or a nervous poo. That's your body making it lighter to run. So all of these things come from very, very early day survival things. And when we go into that from ventral vagal, we then go to that sympathetic state, is what we call it. You might have heard it as fight, flight, freeze. That's also the sympathetic state, fight, flight, freeze. So we actually all know polyvagal theory. We put these big fancy terms on it, but we all know it's like fight, flight, freeze. And we find that freeze is in society the most common, but there's not one that's right or wrong. There's a few more that have kind of become socially constructed, such as friend, where somebody befriends a perpetrator. So that makes them seem as a non-object. So with that one, it's again not it's not thought through. It's not, oh, I'll be really friendly to her and then she won't hurt me. It's not. It's completely automatic. And then flop is another more socially constructed one. Flop is when we kind of take another step down into the dorsal vagal stage. So that's complete shutdown. So then you'll see symptoms of them being numb, really low energy, maybe feelings of hopelessness. So things that would line up with more depressive symptoms. That is when we're in dorsal vagal state. So ventral vagal, that's where kind of the regulated calm we want to be. In the face of trauma, then you see sympathetic state, fight, flight, freeze, friend. Always hard to get your tongue around those ones. And then you're going to see a lot of symptoms there, like anxiety, breathing up in your chest, huge mood swings, not being able to kind of stay still for very long, that unable to maintain friendships or relationships, and then moving down into dorsal vagal, complete shutdown, kind of really low mood, really low in energy. And again, these are all very, very physical things. So you say to someone, oh, why didn't you come forward? I was operating down here, I couldn't. Or you say, someone has said, oh, why didn't she do anything? Why didn't she fight back? Fight, flight, freeze, she froze, she couldn't do anything. There was no option. These are all really, really automatic. So not to get too technical, but the body wants to survive. That is what it wants to do. And in the face of sexual violence, the body thinks it's going to die. So it adapts. And if that's freezing, that's freezing. If that's friend, that's friend. We have no choice. We can't think, oh, you know what, today I'm going to be fight. That's a completely automatic thing. It's where that adrenaline goes into the muscles and the muscles contract. That we cannot rationally think, oh, I'm going to fight back. There was no option there. There was no option for that person to fight back. If they go into freeze, they go into freeze. If they go into dorsal vagal and they shut down, that's the body trying to keep them alive. We go into complete survival mode. And these are things that after the incident has ended, that it's not, okay, that was that, and we move on. Obviously not. These symptoms follow us because we weren't able to process that incident. So things like being able to access counselling in a way that is accessible, and in a way that is kind of non-complicated as well. At RASA, we don't ever pressure someone to report. Obviously, we would love for everyone to feel they can report and that is something that they're absolutely entitled to do. But if they're not ready to report to the police, we're never going to force someone and pressure them to do it, unless they're under the age of 18, and then safeguarding kicks in there. So yeah, the symptoms of something like this, massive, absolutely massive, and looks really different for everybody because we all have completely different body responses, automatic responses. So it can look, for two survivors that go through the exact same thing, could look completely different.
Thanks, Leah. This can be a part that we snip out, by the way. I'm conscious we've kind of jumped about a little bit, haven't we? So what do you reckon? What feels natural next?
We did have, well, there was that other slide on barriers to disclosing, but I suppose we've kind of covered it. It's just that graph with that one. We can ignore that.
I think that
already.
could be good to kind of wrap up that section if you want to.
Yeah,
we could highlight visual, isn't it?
Do you want to say, Manon, do you want to use that, and do you want to talk about the barriers as bricks, and then we can move on to talking about the bridge over them?
What do you mean barriers? Oh, that we build a, oh God, I don't know what your quote is. That was your quote. It's fine. It's fine.
So each barrier is a brick, and that brick creates a wall between the person and the support.
Let's let you do that. I'm not very metaphorical in that way. I'll make a list of that. You do that.
Okay,
I'll do that.
You chat.
We'll start from this slide, yeah, and Manon, you'll talk about this slide, and that will kind of bounce into Leah's beautiful metaphor.
Analogy thing, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great, that works. And then what other slides have we got left?
We've only got, because we kept them very minimal, we've only really got that support slide otherwise, so otherwise it's just anything that you want to ask us or talk around.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think I was going to ask on the previous slides, but I was like, oh, I'm conscious. Am I like crossing wires and mixing the flow up? But I think it would be nice to talk about, you mentioned like spotting the signs and things to look out for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did I not put a slide on indicators? I'm an idiot. I didn't, did I? Crikey. Okay.
That's all right. We can.
But we can.
There's a lot.
Oh wait, yes. Oh no, impact. We haven't done this one.
Impact.
Oh, this actually flows quite nicely from what you were talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want us to do? Do the graph, come back to this one, and we can just chop it up, or do this one and then.
Yeah. So let's think. Just pop back to the other one for me for a second. Impact on survivors and barriers to. Yeah, so maybe if we do the barriers to disclosing first, and then the impact on survivors, could that knit into signs to spot?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
We can wangle it somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll give it a go like that.
We'll give it a go. Cool. Okie dokie.
Okay, I'll just do a very quick introduction on this and then leave you to go with it, Manon, if that works.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. So this slide was interesting as well, Manon, with what we've been discussing around the barriers for survivors and kind of those heavy emotions that come and the fears that people have to kind of speak up. But yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, very much so. So this is actually data from our own service users. We kind of conducted a survey and asked them, what was it? What was that one thing that stopped you coming forward? And I think it's really, really telling that highest number there is embarrassment. But then if we look 3 down, it would be humiliating. I wouldn't be believed. So again, it's that shame and that stigma that keeps creeping into it. So that is the biggest barrier for most people. It's that perception, it's stigma, it's those stereotypes that we hear all the time. You know, there's that victim blaming. We hear, oh, it doesn't happen to men and boys. So men and boys don't feel comfortable or confident coming forward because society doesn't think it can happen to them. Or I think a really big one that we don't necessarily always think about, again, it's something I do with the pupils in schools. We're aware of that phrase, stranger danger. But what we maybe don't realise is a lot of the time sexual violence is carried out by somebody that we know. So the emotional impact of that is huge. Somebody that you loved, somebody that you knew, that you trusted can hurt you in that way. How do you process that? How do you deal with that? And then that's obviously a huge barrier in coming forward as well. If there's somebody that's close to you, they're a friend or a family member, do you want them punished? Do you want to go through sort of the court? Cut that bit out. Judicial system. Do you want to go through sort of the court system and things like that? Do you want punished? What's the impact that's going to have on your family dynamic then? Maybe it was your mother's brother, maybe that's done something to you. That's not only going to impact your relationship with your uncle, but it's going to impact your relationship with your mother and the rest of the extended family as well. So it's not just a simple thing that somebody's going to go, yeah, something's happened and I'm going to tell the world. There's so many different reasons that somebody wouldn't. But again, like we've said so many times, it's really important that we do have that conversation. There shouldn't be any shame. There shouldn't be any stigma. It's not the victim survivor fault at all. 100% of the blame is with that perpetrator. We shouldn't carry any of this on our shoulders. It's not, I shouldn't have been wearing that top. I shouldn't have had that last drink. I shouldn't have been walking down the street by myself. We impose a lot of these barriers on ourselves, and we kind of reinforce that shame and stigma. And I'm not saying that negatively against any victim or survivor. It's kind of just a natural process with the stigma that we all see with this kind of stuff. But that's what we need to change, and we need to get rid of. There are so many impacts from sexual violence on a victim survivor. The impact, the barriers, everything. It's a really traumatic thing for somebody to go through. And then we tend to put ourselves on top of it as well, whereas we should be kind of looking out for ourselves and just getting that support that we need to help process what's happened to us.
And it was interesting what I think you said, Leah, earlier, and a lot of the points here are around, I don't want it to go to court, I don't want people to be prosecuted, fear of going to the police. I think, again, there is an instinct that as soon as that bottle is opened, then that is something that is going to happen 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's good to reiterate that point that, you know, unless there was it under 16, Leah, it's just an individual.
Yeah, so anyone under the age of 18 is a child, and that is a whole different safeguarding situation. So that would have to kind of go forwards. However, if someone's over 18, you don't have to report. You don't have to report it to the police. That we very much want to say that you are entitled to, and you would have all of our support to be able to do that. And, you know, we have the ISVA service, we have avenues to encourage you to do that. But at the end of the day, we are never going to pressure someone who doesn't want to report. That we can see these barriers as well. We understand. But the important thing is that you get the support that is right for you. Yeah,
nice. And I remember when we spoke before, Leah, you had a nice metaphor or analogy. I don't know the difference.
Oh yeah. So,
but,
yeah. What we've kind of been thinking about is that each one of these barriers is like a brick, and in that brick, they're each built on top of each other. So embarrassment being one, not being believed being another. Each is its own thing entirely, and each one comes with their own set of emotions as well. So brick by brick, this wall is built in between the individual, the survivor, and the support that they deserve, the support that they need to feel better. So we now have this person, we have this wall, and we have the support that they physically can't get to because of these barriers, but also because of the symptoms of the trauma. So, for example, depression, not being low energy, not being physically able to access support. Some symptoms are things like extreme fatigue, being really, really tired. So, you know, this person, yes, they might want support, but they're not able to get there. What we like to say is that as kind of professionals or as members of the community, what we want to do is, yes, recognize that wall's there. The society, culture have created this wall. What we want to now make is a bridge. So we're recognizing it's still there, but we want to create a bridge from the support side over to the survivor. You can't force someone over the bridge. We never, ever will force somebody over it. But we can build a bridge so that someone can access support when they're ready, that you can walk on that bridge whenever you're ready to, whenever you're comfortable to, and when the time's right for you.
Yeah, nice. And the immediate question that comes to mind is, I guess, what small or practical things can someone like myself or somebody, you know, watching this with us now, what can we do just day to day to help build that bridge and try and, you know, remove some of the stigma?
That's a great question.
I think if you're dealing with the survivor directly, it is just listen and believe and just be there for them. Don't try and fix, just listen. But I think in terms of society as a whole, we can make a big difference as well. We can challenge these sort of inappropriate comments, these sexist jokes and banter that we see. If we challenge these low level comments and make it clear that that's not tolerated and it's not accepted, then people aren't going to get comfortable at that level and then escalate to that misogyny or those incel kind of ideologies, which ultimately do lead to that sexual violence there. So we need to be modeling behavior within societies, our workplaces, within our sort of social groups, and clearly defining what's wrong and what isn't and what's acceptable and what's not.
I think that's a brilliant point, Manon. And a video that we show in Don't Steal My Future is called Be a Mate. It's from the Scottish rugby team, actually, not the Welsh one, or Irish. But Scotland Rugby did this really brilliant video called Be a Mate. And it's basically saying, call it out. It's difficult too. And those conversations are hard. But we're seeing, specifically amongst young people, that group chats are a big issue at the minute. Misogynistic comments in group chats or kind of sexualized images of peers are growing around group chats. But I think we can also see that kind of in other generations as well. We sexist jokes that just get on WhatsApp. You can see it says forwarded many times. These things just go around and circle around. If it reaches us, can we be the one to stop it? Can we be the one to report it, block it, and say, that's not funny? What we say to the young people is that if you have to make a joke at the expense of another person, then you're just not funny. And we all have it in us. We want to empower all of the young people we're working with and people in society as well. We have it in us to be funny, not at the expense of others, not at the expense of somebody else's dignity. So let's call it out. Let's be a friend, because in doing that, we're not only respecting the person that they're stealing dignity from, but we're respecting our friend as well by saying, that's not funny, and I care about you. I care about what you're taking in. I care about your mental health. And I think that engaging in this kind of language and engaging in that kind of culture is unhealthy. So if we can have those kind of hard conversations on a relational level, it says, look, I know this is awkward, but here, that's not funny, and we can't be standing up for that kind of language, then I think we could really make a huge difference culturally. And even, locally, that's something that people can do at the pub. Not just, it doesn't have to be getting involved in as much. We are always open for volunteers and people that want to get involved, but we don't have to be really, really overt and you don't feel like you have to be involved in as many things as possible to make a big difference. No, we start with ourselves. We make a difference with ourselves and with our core people around us.
Yeah. Is it interesting? A thought popped into my head as you were talking there. We discussed earlier, like the principles of having a good supportive conversation. And again, if you're calling somebody out, we could also use those same principles there as well. Because I think some people might feel nervous about, calling out a friend because they're worried that it might come across the wrong way or just be overly confrontational straight off the bat. But funnily enough, if we take some of the principles that we discussed before, where it's quite calm, finding a private, safe space, listening to the person when they start responding, then that conversation as well can end up with a positive outcome, and it doesn't need to be kind of butting heads or pointing fingers or making somebody feel really, really small.
No, and I think that's the point, isn't it, in that video, is how to talk to your friends best. If it was coming from me, it might get taken one way, but if it's coming from that person's best friend, they know that it's not antagonistic, or they know how to say it in a calmer, less confrontational way, that friend will go, oh yeah, okay, I see what you mean, fair enough, or they'll respect their friend's opinion as well. So that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, fab. Thank you both. I was going to ask you as well, something that was mentioned earlier around what sort of signs to spot. And I guess we've covered a lot of them in and amongst the other conversations, but it'd be useful if, I don't know if it can be simplified. Here's just a short list of signs to spot, but just like a good, a good practical idea for people of what
Yeah.
kind of things to keep an eye out for?
I mean, there's no prescriptive list. There's no black and white, right? These are the 10 signs and this is what you look out for. And everybody, like Leah said, everybody responds differently to trauma. And you could have two people that have gone through the same thing and those indicators might be different. The main thing you need to look for, if you know that individual, look for those subtle changes. Are there any in their patterns of behavior? Are they suddenly more quiet, more reserved, where they used to be quite outgoing? If you might notice patterns in how they're dressing, and it could be one extreme or the other. They could dress more conservatively as a response to what's happened to them, or they could go the complete opposite and dress more provocatively as almost like a defiance kind of thing. So there is pastoral, oh, you've been sexually violated, therefore you're going to cover up. That's not the thing, but it's any changes. Similarly, somebody who might wear more or less makeup than they used to. And eating habits, don't we? If somebody's distracted, somebody might be checking their phone more often or seem concerned. If you are working with somebody and they always bring in their partner to an appointment, just kind of know the relationship between them as well. Do they always look to their partner for validation or approval before they can answer a question? Is there a chance or an opportunity if that partner's out of the room that you can kind of check in with them and go, is everything okay? Or maybe try and book an appointment without the partner. So it's those signs like that, isn't it? But there's no sort of hard and fast rule, but you've got the physical signs, are there bruises, are there cuts, are there anything obvious like that. But just because somebody's got a bruise, we can't automatically assume that they're a survivor of sexual violence. But if we're noticing a bruise and they've become more withdrawn and they've been changing how they're dressing, it's kind of putting those pieces of jigsaw together, if you like. So this was the person that I'm used to dealing with. I've got 3 pieces of the jigsaw now and something's changed. And that should be enough for you to ask that question of, listen, I've noticed this. Is everything okay? Has anything changed with you? Are you all right? Or I've noticed a black eye. What's happened? Is everything okay? And again, it's just giving them that opportunity to ask that question or answer that question rather.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. I would just say trust your gut. That yes, there's a long list of signs that we could be really aware of, but I think if we were all honest, we know when something's wrong. You can tell if someone's mood has significantly changed or it's just something feels off. And Manon, you put it brilliantly earlier saying, yes, there's a risk in asking, but what's the risk if we don't ask? That we trust our, I love the word phronesis. It's like that your knowledge that something's not right here, and I need to just ask. That is all your job is to ask, listen, and signpost. That's the best we can do.
And I really liked, and I think you mentioned this in the training that I did with you, Manon, but just that small bit of phrasing of "I've noticed," and I wrote it down as you said it, like that as a little conversation starter. It sounds so small in the context of all the topics we're discussing, but I think those little turns of phrase quite often are like the big takeaways people have from watching conversations like this or attending trainings. So not to put you both on the spot, but is there anything else that comes to mind where, because we can build ourselves up into these conversations as we've discussed before and think, oh God, how do I even broach the subject? How do I bring it up? What language do I use? And it just reminded me about that when you use that phrase, look, I've noticed.
That one sort of takes the pressure off. It's not on them to disclose them, but you're kind of giving them that permission of, I've noticed this change in you. So they can kind of go, oh, yes, okay, other people are noticing something is happening. In terms of phrasing, if they're in a domestic abuse situation, potentially this behavior has been normalized and they may not even realize that they are in an abusive situation. So if we can phrase the question rather than, have you ever been raped? If we can say, has your partner ever forced you to do something you didn't want to? Because that word, like we said, that word rape can be quite scary. And if we've not associated what's happening to us with that word, that can be quite traumatic in itself, just being asked that. But if we can open it with, has anything happened to you that you didn't consent to, or has your partner ever? Again, it's just kind of rephrasing it.
Yeah.
I think the really important one is that first thing that we say is so important, and we can fall kind of victim to turns of phrases. I know myself, if somebody says something to me, I'll go, oh my word, I can't believe that. And that, to somebody making that initial disclosure, can be the make or break. That could just close somebody down. Of course, it mean that I don't believe them. It's a turn of phrase, and it's just autopilot for me. Oh my gosh, I don't believe that. I do believe them. But they're going to focus, if that's their first experience of disclosing, and the first words they hear back is, I don't believe you, that's going to close that down. So we do need to be mindful of the language that we are using. And also not to put words in people's mouths, isn't it, Leah? If you're talking to somebody and it's quite obvious they have been raped, but they're not using that terminology, don't use it. Match their language as well. Just kind of follow what they're saying. Because like I say, language is really powerful, and that can be traumatizing for them if they've not processed what's happening.
Yeah, there's a really brilliant point, man, on that. Saying I believe you, I mean, I cannot overemphasize how powerful that is for someone, and how much that can set up a positive kind of support route in the future then for someone to kind of go forward. So I think those are absolutely fabulous, Manon. I wouldn't change that at all. Saying I believe you, and that being verbal is so incredibly powerful, I think, for somebody to hear those words who's just gone over that bridge, seeing all those barriers, and hearing the words I believe you can be, I would go as far as saying, could be life-changing for someone. And my other thing for professionals that I would just add is, or even just in day-to-day life for friends or being in society, is if this is a topic for someone who this is too much, that actually you feel like you don't have the capacity to deal with this or to support someone well, perhaps you're a survivor yourself, that's okay. Know where to point someone. Just know where to go. Say, I believe you. I'm so sorry I can't go with you on this journey, but I know someone who can. So having that in the back of our minds, that if you know in yourself this is not something that you can do, that you know where to signpost services, to signpost someone to, national ones and local ones. But on the back of that as well, I do want to empower everyone that it's not complicated, and that you can, that we don't need to get too worried about exactly what we say and how we say it exactly. That if you use those principles Manon has mentioned, if we say I believe you, and if we listen, if we're open to listening, that's enough. It's good enough.
Yeah. I think the big thing is being yourself, isn't it? We can give you a script and we could tell you, right, this is the golden rule, and these word for word, this is what you need to say. But if somebody's disclosing to you, they're going to tell that that's not authentic, that they're going to use the script, and that's not going to be empowering for them. That's not going to be supportive. Yeah. Validate them in however feels natural to you. It's not okay. What's happened to you is not all right. Thank you for coming forward and telling me. You were really brave to come forward. Just empowering them. And I think the really important thing, it doesn't matter how they're feeling, whatever they are feeling is right for them. They might be angry, they might be upset, they might, whatever it is, that's right for them. And we can just tell them, do you know what, whatever you're feeling, that is okay. And they are the expert in their own journey, aren't they? And however they want to process that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So actually, one of the community questions that we had kind of pulls at quite a few of these threads that we've just been touching on. One of the threads in particular, and again, something I've just written down in block capitals, is trust. And that phrase has kind of punctuated the whole conversation, really. Just from, often the perpetrator, the victim will know and be in a close relationship. So there's trust broken there. So then it's difficult to find the trust to disclose to somebody. And one of the community questions related to that. So somebody had asked, what if somebody does tell me, or what if someone tells me that they don't want anyone else to know? So I guess this would be off the back of a disclosure. So should I respect that? I'd be worried about breaking the person's trust.
Great question. Yes, respect it. Like Leah said, unless there is a safeguarding issue, if this person is an adult, they're the expert in their own journey. When it comes to sexual violence, the victims and survivors, they've had power, control and choice taken away from them by the perpetrator. So we need to make sure that we're giving that back to them. So if we were to disclose on their behalf without their consent, technically we've abused them ourselves again, because we've taken that control and choice away from them. And that can be really, really difficult. We want to help people. Somebody's disclosed something awful to us and naturally do something about it. But just by listening and supporting that person, we have. So no, I would say that don't break that person's trust unless there is a safeguarding issue. Don't report it.
Yeah, and in that, so obviously anyone under the age of 18, you have to report, but also if someone is at immediate risk of harm, you also have to report by law that's a kind of a real safeguarding issue there. However, that can be a huge grey area, and with this, it's really hard to manage that. That is so difficult when someone says to you, if it's a friend that comes to you and says, look, this has happened to me, I'm not going to report it, but I want to let you know. That is really difficult. It is hard. But like Manon said, that trust is there. That is one step on the bridge for somebody to getting the support that they really, really need. It can be massively difficult. And I think you as the person supporting, you're also entitled to get some help as well. You know, if you need to contact some support lines, if you feel like you need support in that conversation, feel free to, we'll kind of signpost some great support lines as well. So if you feel like you need some help there, you are entitled to get it too.
Yeah, I think that's teed up really nicely for that slide that you've got on signposting, Manon. So we do have another community question, but I think maybe let's have a look at that signposting now, because I think it flows quite nicely, doesn't it?
So this, for in particular the Live Fear Free helpline, it's 24/7. They're very, very knowledgeable and they're very, very helpful. So as a friend, as a professional, if you have had a disclosure or you're dealing with a particular situation, you can just ring them up for advice and guidance. They'll be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
There's RASAC there. That's us on the top left there. So as I mentioned at the beginning, anybody from the ages of 3 and upwards that have been affected by rape or sexual violence, we can offer that ISPA or counselling support. Under us there is DASU, which is the Domestic Abuse Safety Unit. They're based in Trill and they cover the majority of North Wales. So they will support anybody that's been a victim or survivor of domestic abuse. They've also got shelters and things like that that they can offer for somebody that is looking to leave an abusive situation. And bottom right, we've got the Amethyst SARC, which is the Sexual Assault Referral Centre. They're based in Colwyn Bay, and they can do the forensic testing if there has been a physical assault. They've also got some video suites where individuals can take part in police interviews over video software. So there's a lot of support available out there. There are also more sort of niche specialist support, if you like. So we've got BAUSO, which can support anybody that's Black and ethnic minorities. You've got Gallup, which are a national support for anybody that's in the LGBT community that's been affected. But we thought we'd put sort of the local support for Conwy on this one. But Google is your friend here as well. There's lots of support services out there. And just please reach out. You know, even if it's chat, if you don't know if a situation is something that is sexual violence or is something that's support is available for, just pick up the phone. Everybody at all of these agencies is there to help, and they won't turn down. They will give you, if that's not the right agency for you, they can support you and signpost you to the correct agency that can support you.
Yeah, fab. Because that kind of a question that was going through my head then, almost the difference between Razak and Dasu. Like there's a lot of crossover, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe there isn't. But yeah,
there's
in between those two.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're sister charities, so no, it makes sense as to why it's like, oh, which is this? But Razak, we are, specialized in sexual violence, whereas Dasu is more domestic abuse, and is a bit broader. But we do, cross paths very often. So you're not going mad, Paul.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's reassuring. We'll also obviously include all of these links on the webpage.
Great.
And yeah, if I can trouble the two of you, there was one more community question. If I can pull that up and we can finish with that, perhaps.
Fab.
And it's actually, we've already touched on it a little bit, I'd say. But the question is, as a man, how can I be a positive, genuine, and supportive ally? I'm cautious about taking over the conversation and also walking on eggshells in case I say the wrong thing.
Oh, that's a really good question.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think the fact that you've got that self-awareness to even ask that question shows that you are doing the right thing. And I think you'll be okay. Don't take over the conversation, like we've said. Don't try and fill in those silences. Let the person process what they're talking about, but don't worry about walking on eggshells either. It's better to have that conversation, and maybe you might say the wrong thing, but at least you've opened that conversation. They might get upset, but they might then look for that support as well. For a man, same way that you'd be an ally as a woman, just listen and have that conversation. But,
I think that's brilliant. And remembering as well that yes, the statistics do show us this is a gendered crime, but they also show us it happens to men as well. So this is, just as an important conversation for men. And like we said, being able to take this conversation into all spheres, that as a man, you can be a genuine ally when we see things in the media, that having conversations around that, saying, oh, I believe this person and what they've said. Or if it's more casual conversations, maybe asking people around you what their experiences are, potentially asking women around you, what's your experience working here, or what's your experience been like in this community? Starting those conversations. If you see language, if you see behavior that is misogynistic, if you see behavior that is sexual harassment, even, that you're able to stand up, that you're able to call it out, and knowing that is a really, really difficult thing to do, but that in itself is culture changing and culture formation, that you can be a part of those really positive conversations, and having that awareness, as Manon said, to amplify especially women's voices in this conversation when it hasn't been spoken about before, really at all. So even just allowing it to have a platform, no matter who you're talking to about it, that it's spoken about, that is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, great. It's been really interesting from the community questions that we've had from previous conversations, kind of touch on, and I think this is what this person's doing here, touches on a similar idea of being almost like performative in the way that people support. I think people are very worried about that, about, I know I'm being genuinely supportive, but people think I'm just kind of playing the part, and I'm just, I don't know, not pretending, but you see the point I'm making. Like particularly in the grief conversation, this came up, and the word performative was used in the question with grief, where people were talking about, on social media, what do you think about this performative grief where I'm so sorry, I love this person so much, and you put 20 quick kisses on your post, I put 25 kisses on mine. And I think that was an interesting conversation with grief, but I think that concept kind of ripples into a lot of these topics where people sometimes hold themselves back because they're worried about, I don't know, just coming across as disingenuous.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
No, you go for it.
Sorry. I think it links back to what we were saying about there is no script. And the best thing to do is be your genuine self, because that is going to come across. If you had a script and you're following rote, lines that we've given you, that is going to be performative. That is going to come across as being false and not supportive, and that you are playing a role. If you were genuinely yourself in a way that works for you, that person is going to be more comfortable with you, and it's going to be more supportive and a more comfortable, trusting environment, because you are just genuinely, unashamedly, unabashedly you. And that person, it's you that person has chosen to talk to. So they see something in you and they want the real you back at them when they talk to you, if that makes sense. But I think that was a brilliant question. It was really good.
And I think misogyny is performative. I think the manosphere is performative. It is loud and it is overt, and it can be jarring. And people, maybe some of us think that we have to match that energy to make a difference, when actually we can't be ourselves. That this is about real relationship. Healthy relationship is real and is honest and is genuine and is clunky, and we're not going to get it right. It's going to be a bit awkward. These conversations aren't going to be perfect, but it's having them, that you don't have to be performative, but it is going to be a bit awkward broaching that conversation if it's the first time, maybe within a group of guys, that you've spoken about it, or if it's, if you're going to be made fun of for being the one calling out behavior. Well, okay, maybe that's not the group for you. Maybe that's not a performative thing to do, to stand up. I think that we twist these things sometimes, and if we're the ones standing up, we're trying to be a hero. No, you're not trying to be a hero. You're seeing a real injustice with a huge lifelong impact for some people and a huge societal impact. And you're saying that's not right and I'm not standing by it. That I don't see that. I don't think that's performative at all.
I think it's being a change maker. Pardon the term.
Man on.
Man on.
What a beautiful way to end it. No, it's fantastic. And I think the final thing I would add, without kind of tiptoeing into kind of group dynamics and group psychology, I think oftentimes within a group of men, somebody first speaking up is then giving permission to the rest of the group that, oh, okay, this is a trait of our group, that we are allies. Oh, thank God somebody's done it, because I've kind of been wanting to. So, we've touched on like giving permission and stuff throughout the conversation. And, I've seen it myself where there'll be groups of guys and it just takes that first person to kind of step into the awkward area or the unmanly area or whatever label people imagine is attached to it. And then as soon as one does, everyone's like, we can ask our friends how they're doing and if their mental health is good, or if they're an ally for this, and they're just waiting for that permission. But yeah, that's been a really fantastic hour and nearly an hour, 20 minutes. So thank you so much, both.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. It's been brilliant.
I will end the stream now, and then we can have